Encounter is brought to you by the Broome County Council of Churches, where we connect compassion with needs as we inspire growth with dignity. You'll find us in special places throughout the community. For those who remain hungry, we provide meals. For those who are challenged, we build wheelchair ramps. We comfort those who are ill, minister to those who are confined, and we remain an advocate for change and understanding on behalf of every element of our community. Connect and inspire. Encounter the Broome County Council of Churches.
Good morning and welcome to Encounter. I'm your host today, Joe Sellepack. New Year, Happy New Year to all of you. And as along with the New Year's comes new plans, new organizations, new ideas, and hopefully for most of us, a fresh start on another year will bring a little bit of goodness and joy to us in 2021 that may not have been part of the early parts of 2020 as we anticipate vaccines and the rest of that kind of thing for the pandemic. So one of the major programs of the Council of Churches that you all know about is the CHOW program. The CHOW program has been active for almost 1980. It was 1985, I think, or 83 when CHOW started. So it's been around for a long time. And there to kind of help us see what 2021 looks like for CHOW is Les Aylesworth, our program director for CHOW. Welcome to Encounter today, Les.
Thanks, Dr. Joe. And CHOW started in 1976.
76. There you go. I'm way off. So it's approaching actually what? That's 45 years old. Yeah. So it's been around for a long time. So as far as your look, are you looking forward to 2021? Is this something that you're hoping to capitalize on and look forward to?
Yes, because it's not 2020. I think that I share the sentiment with many people. I think with just in the broader world we live in, a vaccine coming down, and I hear it's in Broome County now, being distributed. I think that just gives us some hope. Just I don't want it to be false hope, but I think it gives us some okay, this whole pandemic thing may have an ending to it. What that ending looks like, we don't know. But as far as the urgent craziness, uncertainty, I'm hoping that 2021 brings around not necessarily normalcy, but stability. And so for CHOW, that means evaluating what happened in 2020 and seeing what changes have to be made in 2021.
So what did happen in 2020?
So there was a pandemic, and that basically took what we did here, and I know it wasn't just exclusive to CHOW, but threw a hand grenade in what we do, and this exploded.
Yeah.
So much of what we do. We had the need exploded because people were out of work. People were on forced lockdowns. People were told to stay home because they were in vulnerable age groups. People were home because school was home, remote. And so you had all these dynamics, people being out of jobs, all these dynamics forcing our community into uncharted waters. And we've used this term unprecedented from day one, and it's become this overused word, but it was all unprecedented. And so when it's unprecedented, there's no precedent to guide you. So you're going by, as I called it, Plan M, make it up as you go.
Yeah.
And that's what we were doing through 2020, trying to make adjustments along the way. So whether it was home deliveries, whether it was with emergency food boxes, whether it was partnering with schools to distribute boxes to them, whether it was seeing Maine's go bankrupt and that source of produce come flooding in at the last minute, or I should say, as soon as they went bankrupt, come flooding in as all the restaurants and things closed, and literally having hundreds of thousands of pounds of produce to move, to a change over to a new distributor there where we get different types of food now, not hardly any produce, but mostly frozen stuff. Those are the types of things that have just affected, and many, many more, which maybe we'll get to talk about here.
Yeah. So you're really talking a lot about a pivot that had to happen in order to kind of change how things worked in CHOW for 2020.
Mhm.
And one of the things as the executive director for the council that kind of impacted me was just the amount of generosity that people showed to us through the whole pandemic, and even now because we're not through the pandemic, we still are looking at a good 6 months of or even more of dealing with people in quarantine, people in isolation, needing to keep social distancing, try to get that herd immunity built to the point where we're not infecting each other. So, how did that impact you as a director? I mean, it must have been quite rewarding to see so many people coming out and being so generous to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, I think it's a great point to bring up, because let's face it, there was a lot of bad things that happened in 2020. I mean, societally, with everything going on, in spite of all that, the community rose up and was just incredibly generous. And so there was just so many positive things that happened through 2020 where people who had gave. And when it came to, I don't know, I talked to someone yesterday. This would be Thursday. They got their stimulus check and they said they don't need it, so they want to give it to CHOW. And those types of things have happened over and over and over again. People handing bags of change, to see the community recognize the work that we're doing, see their neighbors in need, and actually take action. It is very gratifying, because it tells me that many years and people that have worked in CHOW in the past have developed this incredible relationship with the community that I'm basically have the privilege of just picking up and carrying it on. It was long before me, and to see that reputation that CHOW has developed in the community, where people entrust us with their gifts, that I think it's a pretty amazing. And there are a lot of good organizations in the county and in the community that do good work, and that people would think of us. It really means a lot. It says something, not just about what CHOW is doing, but what this community is all about.
Yeah, and when you start thinking about it too, a lot of our food raisers, the points where we collect food, we do a food drive or something like that. A lot of those things had to go on the back burner this year, because we weren't able to follow through with them because of the need for social isolation and to keep people safe. So these gifts really do mean a lot as far as our ability to purchase food and to find food in other ways. So do you want to talk a little bit about how that shift has impacted CHOW?
Yeah, and I think that you raised that, the fact that we couldn't do food drives in the traditional sense. I know we've talked about this, but to put it in this perspective for the viewers, with 3 major food drives back in 2019, we generated over or around 110,000 pounds of food, just raw, not raw as like in raw chicken, but just volume of non-perishable food. In 2020, we were only able to do 1 of those drives, and it brought in less than 7,000 pounds of food. So you had 100,000 pound swing just in 3 drives. That doesn't count all the countless school drives that happen throughout the year, and those types of events that historically took place. I'd be curious. I don't know if it's possible, but I'm guessing several 100,000 pounds of food just never came in. So that required part of that pivot to purchase the food instead. And that's where the tremendous gifts that people gave us helped us to be able to make that pivot. Because if we didn't have that, we wouldn't have been able to do that.
So do you expect that that our 2020 numbers, as we do the inventory and we start looking at how many pounds of food we distributed, do you think that they would have been impacted negatively by the pandemic?
The amount of food we distributed?
Yeah.
To some degree, yeah, because there were pantries that closed down, meals that had to change how they operated. So we did see in some cases, numbers went down with some places, whereas other places skyrocketed. It was really hard to put our finger on what and where and how and when, and it was just such in many respects, the uncertainty, I think, of all, it was challenging to see trends. And I remember thinking months and months ago, like, if only we could get a few weeks of look ahead, it would be really helpful. But it seemed like every week there was a new nuance to what was happening, change in this. In October we had a sudden surge of cases that things started shutting down again. So it has affected both certainly the incoming food and in some cases the distribution of the ability to get food out to folks.
But as far as like gross numbers, we've actually done better in
Exactly.
2020 than we have in previous years.
In total, this is a record-breaking year because the need was just there. So the last I looked at it, we're over last year's numbers, and last year's numbers were pretty good. So we're well over 2 million meals that we provided for the community. And again, we couldn't have done that without the generosity of the people in the community.
So as we're looking toward 2021, we do know that we're still in the middle of a pandemic, and so as a result of that, we know that some of this is going to continue through at least the first part of 2021. But as we look toward, at some point we're going to need to pivot again. And this is it's always kind of interesting when you start talking about how food programs evolve or change, because we're part of the community, and as the community changes, we change. It's kind of it's just kind of the way that it works. Mm-hmm. So how do you anticipate that looking in 2021?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think number one, you're right. We will not, as I mentioned earlier, maybe the light's at the end of the tunnel and we can be hopeful, but I don't know as we've even seen the full economic impact of the pandemic. That it remains to be seen. I just don't know. Again, there's that uncertainty. So one of the things we've done almost from the get-go of the pandemic and how we've adjusted and changed things is I've done a lot of imagining different scenarios, what might happen. And because it's been more imagining than planning, if that makes any sense. Right. So you imagine, then you try to plan for that potential possibility. And so, like you said, we're not out of the woods, really, not even close, probably. So because of the ramifications of not as many food drives and not that food coming in that way, we will most likely continue purchasing more food in 2021. And that it's like a double-edged sword, because it costs more money. On the plus side, you're able to control better what you're getting. And so exactly. You can start to have a more predictable or dependable menu for our pantries and meals, and they can start to, again, not that we're ungrateful for any of the food drives, but rather than getting a box of assorted canned vegetables, they can know they're getting a case of canned corn. And so they can think through that maybe a little bit better when they're trying to stock up their own pantry, and hopefully that will benefit them in the years to come. And so that's part of the I don't want to use the word evolution, but the forced change that we're part of the community. Like you said, we had to adapt. And if we tried to just do things like business as usual, I don't know what we'd be doing.
Now, as we educate our viewers, and I have today Les Aylesworth, who's the CHOW director from CHOW, and we're talking a little bit about what CHOW is going to be looking like in 2021 and what we've done in 2020. Now, with a dollar, so just to educate our viewers and our listeners a little bit. With the dollar that we are able to raise, how much food can you purchase with that dollar wholesale versus what that dollar would do at a grocery store?
So because we're able to purchase at wholesale, we can buy at a better rate than the average customer. So like you and I going to the grocery store, it costs more than what we can purchase through CHOW. So we're really proud of this, that $1 donated to CHOW equals 5 meals for the community. And we work really hard. As I mentioned before, people in the past have worked really, really hard to really help our organization be as streamlined and as efficient as possible, and to be good stewards of the gifts that people have given us. I think that's really important for us. We try very hard to be respectful and grateful for the gifts that have been given to us. So we're able to, turn that gift into maximize that gift into more meals than the average person could donate in food. Again, yeah. I don't want to underestimate and imply
undervalue. Really.
Undervalue, exactly. Don't want to undervalue every can of food and box of whatever donated to us, because that's all part of the equation to make happen what happens here.
Yeah, you know what, one of the areas that I love to see is when a Girl Scout troop comes in with or a Boy Scout troop, when they come in with a food drive that they've coordinated, and you see the pride in those kids. They see how much food there is, and then when you weigh it all, you put it on the big scale, and they take a look at it, and they see that they've raised like 2,000 or 3,000 pounds of food, mm-hmm. and you're never going to take that away from them. That's going to be something that kind of follows them for the rest of their life. They want to make a difference. They want to see what they're able to do for people, and you don't want to denigrate that or belittle it or make it anything less than just the generous act that it is. It's just a beautiful thing. It really One is. Of the things I love to do is to take the Girl Scout troop or the Boy Scout troop and put them all up on the scale and show them what they weigh in comparison to the amount of food that they were able to raise. And generally, the food that they're raising almost equals, or if not surpasses, the weight of the Girl Scout troop or the Boy Scout troop. I wouldn't want to do that myself, because frankly,
I was thinking the same thing for myself.
It's just not a great thing. But for a group of kids, it's a fun thing, and they all look forward to it, and they see it, and you don't want to take that away from the children. But for adults, as we look at 2021 specifically, it's going to require a lot more of us digging down and trying to raise the money that's necessary in order to purchase the food to help the hungry, and that's a bigger thing, I think, than what we've been accustomed to in the past. So that's another pivot that takes place, I think, mm-hmm. in some ways. So how do you manage that, and especially when it comes to purchasing food? I mean, we have to source that from different places, and there are a lot of places that a lot of providers that we're working with. Can you want to tell our viewers about some of who those providers are and how we get the food to the warehouse?
Yeah, sure. And this goes back to what you said earlier with situations forcing us to make changes. And because of the reality of things, we've had to purchase more food. I know we're sort of saying this over and over again, but that changes how we do everything here, because it's a different way of thinking. Rather than being a receiver of those donations, now we become a purchaser of product, and you have to think differently about that. You have to start comparing prices. You have to start maybe negotiating, and so you can get the best deal possible. So one of the things that happened over the last year was we were a recipient of the Nourish New York grant, and that gave us the ability to connect with New York farms that were sourcing New York food. So we were able to purchase food from New York farmers, whether it was produce or meats or eggs, and then distribute it to our community. And one of the partners we cooked up with was an egg farm. And the neat thing about that is it's the same place where the grocery stores get their eggs. And so we've got a really good deal to buy eggs now. We can get fresh eggs. It's really nice to get, in that case, to get fresh food rather than that donated, like it's already past due and you got to hopefully eat it right away. We can actually get the fresh stuff. We're able to get wholesale from grocery stores like Wise. We have access to their wholesale pricing. And we're continually working at getting other people online. When I say online, I don't mean like literally online, but connected with us. We've sourced food from a grocery store chain out in that does like the Sure Saves and the Reliable Markets.
Right.
We've gotten food from that distributor. We've gotten food from Mott's applesauce, that company that oversees that one. We've made connections there. So and others, and those are just good sources to have now, and especially thinking about 2021 where we're going to be doing more of this. You know, it takes more time right now because it's new and it requires that a different way of looking at it, but I'm confident and actually excited about this. I think it's going to be kind of fun.
You know, and I've been talking with Jack too over at the Greater Good Grocery about some of the way that we've been able to, the ways that we might be able to combine or leverage like our buying power, especially for eggs, that kind of thing, that you were talking about, because it seems to me as if this is a natural fit for us as far as that, and then also making sure that we have very little waste at the grocery store, because we're able to give it out through the network at CHOW. So you want to talk about what that pivot has meant to CHOW as well.
Yeah, it's great. In fact, Jack and I were talking the other night. I went over to the store to check it out and do some shopping. Wanted to get in there and spend my money there. And I'd let him know about some of these, gave him access, and some of the connections he had, he was like blown away by the pricing that we were able to get. And so like with eggs specifically, we've already ordered eggs together, and for that'll benefit the community in both ways, because they'll be able to sell the eggs at a really good deal. People who are in need will be able to get fresh eggs, and so it really is a win-win. And by buying it together, we, like you said, we can leverage that to get even better deals. And and we're just starting. And that's the exciting part about the store is it's been open a week.
Less than a week. One day.
We literally are just
like
starting up. So it's only going to get better from here, and knowing that will become almost not a cyclical, but like a symbiotic, as we partner in that, and then food that then is ready to be recovered, we're able to then use it over here at CHOW.
Yeah, well, and I've always thought that this was a natural progression for dealing with hunger insecurity in our area, is making sure that people have access to good quality food at a reasonable price, and that's really what we've been trying to do through the grocery store. So as we're thinking about like the theological stuff, I know that you're one of those MDiv people with the Reverend in front of your name too. When you think about the theological grounding for dealing with food insecurity and all that kind of stuff. What do you think of that this might mean for the church and for people of faith?
On our website, we talk about how we're called to love our neighbor. And one of the ways the Broome County Council of Churches does it is by meeting felt needs. And the way CHOW does it is by meeting the felt need of food. We both know in the life of Jesus, we see him feeding people, meeting felt needs through food. And I think that this is just one of those ways in which we can love people. Last night, we did a little devotional with my kids, and we were looking at the passage of love out of 1 Corinthians. And it says, the verse 3 talks about how, you could be super sacrificial and give everything you have, but if you don't have love, it's kind of like, what's the point? Now, giving is always good, but when we see the life of Jesus, his was a life of love, and that's what motivated him. And he was a gift from God, himself was. And so love motivated everything he did. And, this is how we can love our neighbors in a really tangible way. And hopefully, they will see Jesus in us with what we're doing.
Well, thank you, Les, for being on Encounter today and for talking about the future of CHOW and also the past year, kind of giving us a wrap up. For all of you, we hope that you would have a great day today and that you would experience the love and care of all of God's people. So have a good day.